people have to understand or come to the realization that art is really important. It's not a frivolous thing. It's very proactive. It's good in so many ways. It's the counterbalance to all that's going on in society now.
Elaine Mandrona's passion for art is clearly evident when she speaks about its place within our culture and society. Together with Archie Nadon, she has worked to build a network of supports for artists across Île-Madame and Greater Richmond County in Unama'ki, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Beginning with the establishment in 2023 of a local online arts journal known as The Strait, Elaine and Archie went on to found the Richmond Artists Alliance, a nonprofit organization which brings vital supports to artists in a region that is marked by siloed communities and challenges with respect to communications between artists and arts organizations, both locally and regionally. In today's conversation, I sit down with Elaine and Archie to discuss the initiatives they've created, the impacts they've had within Richmond County, as well as the challenges that lie ahead. This podcast was recorded in Unama'ki on the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The Cape Breton University Art Gallery recognizes its role in honoring the treaties of peace and friendship with a commitment to continually learn the truth of our collective history and to build towards reconciliation and authentic allyship. I'm your host, Greg Davies, and this is The Strait and Narrow. Elaine and Archie, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today. Perhaps we can begin with what it is that you've started in Richmond County, how it came to be, and where it's going from here.
Oh, Elaine should answer that because she was really the one that started it, and I said I would support her, but now I'm president.
By default.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So Elaine, you're kind of the principal figure then behind this.
Yeah, I'd say we were a team, but anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're president. Well, it started out, I started making art in earnest just before retirement and teaching myself and then wondering, where I could connect with other artists and where I could sell my art. And so that was the main impetus behind it. So we moved to Île-Madame, how many years ago now? 4 years ago.
And you came to Île-Madame from where?
From Moncton. From Moncton. And I had already started doing art when I was in Moncton, and I had a little studio built and all that. And Île-Madame had one place that you could sell your art, but it was kind of sporadic and, not very dedicated to the arts. So the more we thought about it, the more we thought it would be a good idea to start investigating people that made art in the island, kind of get a feel for what we're doing and what was the level of interest and ability and all those things. So with that, we started the Strait magazine. Both Archie and I have been involved in journalism and community journalism for a while. We both worked for small newspapers over the years, and we started in Moncton something called Moncton Beats, which followed the food movement. So when we came to Île-Madame, we decided to switch it up and cover the arts. So we started the Strait magazine, which was a vehicle. With a vehicle like that, it opens up the community for you. You just say, you want to come and do an article, and people are willing to talk to you. So we started doing that, and people got very excited about it. They liked the focus being on them and like describing what they did.
Yep.
And we found that people were in the woodwork everywhere making things.
Mm-hmm. And when did that start? The Strait magazine started when?
So about a year after we got
a year after we got here.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to add anything to that chain of events.
Oh, not really, but we both found that journalism is a great vehicle for doing community type of research.
Right.
My own background in university was social research, and then when I was living in Fredericton, I worked at the a community radio station, CHSR, at the university. And I found it just opened doors all over the place. So it was a really handy thing to do. We did everything from doing local events to we went to Florida and talked to Mayans there, and we just told them, we called ahead. We said we work for a community radio station. Can we do an interview on Mayans that are living in Florida? And it's just like we were CBC or something, where they just accepted that.
We got the royal treatment.
Yeah, our credentials. And so it just opens doors all over the place. And
it's also where we met at the community radio station. So open that door too.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we soon started doing interviews together. Yeah.
So the response, obviously, right off the top was very positive.
It was positive.
And there was a lot of interest.
And it was sort of a research wrapped into it. We would talk to people and they would tell us what they needed, which was a place to sell their art, a chance to learn more about art or develop their skills, a chance to network with other artists. So that's what brought the next step to fruition, which was starting the Richmond Artists Alliance.
So people obviously fairly early on also communicated their particular needs within Richmond County, not just Ilmadam, but in the county itself. I'm just wondering if you, because you've been doing this for a little while now, if you have some thoughts on why that was absent before, why the sort of lines of communication were sort of not really there, because obviously this has helped to forge those lines of communication.
Well, I think the Strait magazine had a lot to do with it, where we took the time to sit with people and actually talk, and then, write about them in a positive manner, about what they were doing. As when people feel they're actually being seen and heard, then they're likely to join something. Whereas if we had just come in and say, hey, we're starting an association, people would just say, oh yeah, another association, or another group, and not really understand. Like, it helped with the understanding also of what we were trying to do by having those community discussions. So that was really important.
Well, I have to commend both of you on even taking the initiative to start a magazine, because I'm quite aware of how much time and energy is involved in doing even one article, let alone doing it continuously. So to keep the momentum going up is quite an extraordinary thing, and I commend both of you for taking that on. Since starting it, where would you say, how would you measure the impacts that it's had locally? What are some of the outcomes of what you've done so far that you would say are worthy of note?
Well, pretty early into our whole endeavor, people offered us places to have a gallery, which was, just out of the blue. We had one offer in Port Hawkesbury that fell through because of some insurance concerns. But then the Discoos Civic Center said, oh, we have this room. Do you guys want to use it for a gallery? So there was a response, just goodwill from the community right off the bat. And at first, not too many. We had maybe, I think, 9 people at the gallery showing, and now we have like 16 or 17. So once people saw that, they could make some money and that it was growing and it was something that was going to bring a lot of things together, they got excited. Also,
well, there's also the legitimacy aspect of it too. People, like a lot of people were going to sales and showing their friends that their stuff, what stuff they had, but to see it in the gallery brings everything to another level. It's the same with the Strait magazine. To read about your neighbor in a magazine and see professional photographs going with it, it elevates everything. And I think the gallery has done that. It's elevated all the ones that are there, and we see it all the time when people come in and say, "Oh, this is amazing," and I know her. I know that's my. We get a lot of that's my first cousin.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people who know each other or connect
really,
already.
Yes.
Yep.
As one of our members, Denise, says, if you put something on a pedestal or frame it, it makes it seem important. And that's kind of what we did. Like here, we've put a definition around it.
Yeah. There's no question that a gallery space or a formal space for exhibiting art changes your perception of it dramatically. And it can be a great confidence booster as well for people who have not shown in galleries before to have that experience. So I think
the proletariat art program is an example of that.
Yeah, and I think that's there's an issue for art galleries, particularly public art galleries, in connecting with communities at large, which have to do with public perceptions around what they represent. And unfortunately, a lot of galleries, and this is no accident. I think in some ways, the art worlds have built this up over time. But there's a tendency for people to come and perceive it as rather elitist or exclusive. And things like the Proletariat Art exhibition help to break down those barriers, but also to open the doors for other people to have to be part of a conversation about why art is important, which I think is an ongoing thing. And again, it's why an initiative like the Scrape magazine is really important, because it's providing those who might look at galleries and look at the art world as something that is not for me. I don't belong there. It's opening that door to allow other people to be included in it, which I think is extremely important.
Yeah, that was, I think, another key to our success was we open membership to anyone that makes things. And
and is that all ages and all levels of experience?
Yeah, all ages, all levels of experience. Yeah.
Very good. So at this point in time, you've been doing this for a little bit. Where do you see things going?
Oh.
You've had lots of conversations on that.
We have ideas. Yeah, we have brainstorming sessions over wine. It always
Wine gets us into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, no, in some good directions. But
Yes,
sometimes
it can be very helpful.
Yeah, we bite off more than we can chew, but not really.
What we want to do is put money into the pockets of the artists themselves. Our mentors in all this has been Artwork East in Guysborough.
Okay.
They're about 6 years into their association, and they're remarkably similar to us, a kind of a remote county,
Right.
a far-flung population, no hardcore center to it, really.
Had you been looking at them before you started this initiative?
No,
Or
we
this
discovered them
scope?
after. I'm not sure how we discovered them after.
Well,
But
no, I had discovered them before we started, but they never returned my email or something like that. And then we tried again, and they had gotten more organized. They had a person that was looking after correspondence, and so they got back to us and were really excited that we were kind of sister groups, and perhaps there was room for collaboration, which is something that we're talking about now.
That's amazing.
So, of course, we interviewed the president, Jack Leonard, and his wife, Lee, who's a trained, he's not an artist, but she's a classically trained artist.
Okay.
And we just talked and talked and talked. There were so many similarities, and they had so much information that they could give us. But one of the things that the part of the foundation of all of it is they put money into the pockets of their artists, and to that end, they put on a lot of workshops, and they make sure that the artists giving the workshops get Carfax rates, not like $20 or $50 or like a scented candle or something. You want to get Carfax rates, and that makes a lot of difference to people doing art in a remote area.
Sure.
I know, like Yukon is remote, but when you're in Cape Breton, Richmond County feels remote. It feels like we're not connected. You asked earlier about why weren't the artists organized? Well, part of it is that it's with the sort of the social media thing these days, people know everything about some things going on across the continent.
Yeah.
But they know nothing about their neighbors doing. Right. So you have to get out there and talk to people.
Yes.
I think someone gave us that advice. I'm not sure who gave us that advice, but said you have to go talk to people.
It might have been Bill.
Oh,
Bill Culp.
Bill Culp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's a great connector.
Yeah, he is
particularly adept at doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's wonderful. So, from what you're saying, it sounds like capacity building, I guess we would call it, is a key issue right now. Providing education, providing resources to help people sell their artwork and become more professional in what they're doing. Also raising professional standards. When you mention CARFAC, that immediately, to my mind, means that you're talking about building awareness that there is such a thing as CARFAC, which is, of course, a Canadian organization. It's a nonprofit organization that helps to set standards for pay, compensation, and delivery of work. But that sounds to me like a key aspect of what you're doing. Are there other things? Well, perhaps we can talk a little bit about how that's sort of unfolded since you started all this, where you see sort of areas that have been successful and where there's maybe room for further development and growth. And also some other aspects of professional development, which is the more critical discursive side of art and elevating the content of work or the delivery of that content. So maybe just to sort of go back to that, perhaps if you could talk a little bit about what you've managed to achieve so far that you would consider to be successes and what still needs to be done in terms of work moving forward.
Well, something we've achieved, I think, is just getting more people making art. And at some of our meetings, a lot of people mentioned when they started making art, it was really helping their mental health. And
that's interesting.
In our group now, I see people who are getting right into it. And you could see that it's helping them blossom and grow and gain confidence. So that was a big one.
So health and wellness is part of what you're doing as well. It's an offshoot of all this, yeah.
And there are also some, like our membership's quite mixed. Some people that want the next step. They want to learn more about, well, how do I do this technique and how do I understand, how to put meaning into art and how to put intent into art. And a lot of people realize that is a thing, but they don't know how to do it. Yeah. So we've been talking between us and also with Jack and Lee Leonard about a school without walls, but bringing in, could be an artist in residence, could be, professional teachers or people at a certain level that would address some of these needs, or starting a list.
Yeah.
And we're still in the brainstorming stage, but this seems to be what's getting us going now. We're getting excited about this. Yes, we need to do that. And also events like you brought to Ver Bourgeois.
Yeah.
With Natasha, where people just get together and share their art and discuss the ideas in the art, and everyone ends up feeling really good.
And in the case of that particular event, the Artist Gathering, an initiative that we started at CBU Art Gallery back in 2018, I think it was when we first started that. The intention behind that was to create really just a platform for people to come together and talk about their work. But also with the intention of filling in a space that's basically a lacuna here on the island. There really aren't spaces for people to have crit sessions, as they're generally called in art schools, where it compels you to talk about your artwork, to develop your public speaking skills, and also to get mentorship and critical feedback to help it grow. That when I came here in 2017, that was one of the things that struck me as a missing component for artists, and it's really important to fill that. Now, you've already been doing that kind of thing down in Richmond County, and so when I brought that session out to you, hopefully it adds some more voices at the table. The more people we have in the discussion, the better it is ultimately. But also for us, for the gallery, it's an opportunity also to connect with a community that otherwise we're separated from. And so I think it's important for all participants in it to do these things.
Well, our first event for the group was a show and tell, and it was just like elementary school where they went to the front of the class and and everyone had 5 minutes, and they were quite happy with the way it went.
Yeah,
and they were excited to meet all the other artists. But your event elevated that to another level, and people. You brought in context and art history and other artists, and at the end, I could feel a sense of awe amongst themselves that they understood it. That they not that I didn't think that they could understand it, but that they didn't realize that they could go to that level of art.
Right.
I think that was important.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that, because I think for me, that's a very critical aspect of doing what we do. And it goes back to that point that we were discussing before about breaking down the wall of sort of this perceived elitism or exclusivity, that people are more than capable of having these conversations, and they're more than capable of engaging with some of these concepts that they might feel beforehand are going to be too lofty or require a body of knowledge that requires years of study. And the conversations can certainly be informed by that, but they don't have to be dictated by that kind of thing. So I'm really pleased to hear that was part of the outcome, and I look forward to doing another one down the road.
Yeah, everyone asked, is he coming again? He said,
Oh, wonderful.
yes, yeah.
That's great. And you've mentioned Natasha, who was our YCW intern this year, who's been fantastic. And Natasha has a background in graphic design, which is something that I don't have formal training in, but she's able to bring something to the table too. So it's always morphing and changing. And for me, I think there's part of the benefit is that there's always a learning experience for myself as well, along with everybody else.
And we thought a lot of what Natasha had shown us with her notebooks and her scrapbooks would really be exciting for children to, younger
sure.
people, it, would really appeal to them. And that's something we're looking for too, how to engage younger people, because there's not a whole lot for kids to do. And, that would be a wonderful addition. Yeah, so we're thinking about that as well, young people.
Well, actually, introducing more art to more of the people in Richmond County who aren't usually, they go to the craft markets and that kind of stuff, and they see art and stuff. But to be introduced to, like in our case, we have the gallery, and they have a sense that this is not a craft market.
We see all of our artists in a very positive light, that they're all on the road to being creative, where they're making the effort to express themselves in that way. It's
and I could sense from the visit that we had, you can feel confidence rising in people as well, because they certainly have the skill sets. There's no question about that. But that confidence thing is an important part of it, and it connects with that health and wellness issue that we were talking about before.
That's surprised me how often that came up. Like when they were talking, when the people were doing their show and tell, I don't know how many people said, this has helped my mental health so much. And it's felt like a little bit like a lifeline.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important for all of us to remember, of course, that we're coming off COVID. And it's funny, because I was having a conversation this morning where we was talking with somebody, and they said, well, maybe I should go for a COVID test because they have the flu symptoms that are coming up. And I thought, we don't talk about COVID very much. It's almost as if it's kind of vanished and it's a non-entity. But in addition to that, there are the sort of long-term leftover effects of being sequestered away or isolated for that time period, which I know with younger people, I still see the effects, that 2-year loss of regular school interaction and social interaction. It's still there, so we can't really ignore it. In all of this health and wellness aspect of what you're doing that we're talking about, the lingering effects of COVID and how that has impacted people.
And how that was compounded by social media.
Oh, yes.
Because now you look at your feed and there's so much other stuff that's not related to any of the friends that you have on your page. So, connecting people is I think one of the key things, and doing them with their art has been awe-inspiring.
This is one of the things about what you're doing that is so resonant for this moment in time, is that it really is about face-to-face, one-on-one communications and actually getting to know people and talking about their work, as opposed to posting it to just sort of spread on social media.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That extends to the way we've been having meetings, like our steering committee. We have it usually a Zoom meeting, but we've had these other meetings where we go someplace else in the county, and it's an in-person meeting, and people come that some of them weren't connected to anything that we were doing, and they came out to those meetings,
right?
And that started something else. So connecting with actual people in real time, is critical.
Yeah, and also, here in Cape Breton, if we're talking about very real things that impact people on a day-to-day basis, of course, data reach is very limited. So things like social media or even email don't exist for some people on the island. And so again, that face-to-face or coming out to communities and connecting one-on-one with people is really essential. So you're getting feedback, obviously, from some of these artists, and you're having more and more conversations. As you're doing the Scrape magazine articles, you're having opportunities to talk with artists and get feedback from them. Is there anything at this point for artists in your area that you're hearing about that perhaps you still need to find a way to develop that in terms of what supports you can provide?
Not really as feedback, but everything that we've thought up is always well received. Like the meetings in other part of the county, the first show and tell that we did, and the one that you and the gallery, all those have created a lot of excitement. And people show up and they come, and we had a little meet the artist night one night, and that was well attended.
Yeah, wonderful.
It's whatever we do, it's always well received, always well attended.
Yeah.
So it tells you, because again, you put something on Facebook and you get a big thumb or something. It's about what can you do with that? You can't do anything with a big thumb. Yeah. Except stick it where the sun doesn't shine.
Well, there's a work of art in that. But you're right, and that is the problem. Also, again, I don't want to really belabor the social media issue, because I think in many ways that's a huge topic on its own. But you're exactly right that, say, the thumb is a positive response, but it doesn't tell you why it was. And I think sometimes people are so inclined to automatically hit that button that even they don't know what it is about this thing that made them say yes.
Well, it's nothing. It's just it can be yeah, I hear what you said.
Yes.
And it means virtually it means nothing.
Yeah. Back in I think it was also around 2018, I experimented with an initiative, and basically what it was what I call crit theory sessions. It was a little bit like the artist gatherings. The idea being that we could talk about art history and critical theory in relation to practice. And that started out of a conversation with a local artist who was saying to me, I don't know where to begin in terms of reading about some of these things that are foundational for making art based in art history and critical theory. So I thought, well, maybe we can experiment with doing public sessions where we sit down and look at one particular essay or a particular book and talk about why it's so important. It would at least then put some of the critical writing in art and art history on the table for some people, and they'd maybe have an idea as to where to go.
Well, I think people have to understand or come to the realization that art is really important. It's not a frivolous thing.
Yeah.
It's very proactive. It's good in so many ways. It's the counterbalance to all that's going on in society now. It could even be a sacred thing. It's so many things, and it's so very important, and we've lost all that. It's a path to healing so many things in our society, because it allows us to ask different questions and pursue, certain trains of thought and make decisions in a certain way to express what we're thinking and feeling. So what you're talking about is bringing in the kind of book knowledge about art history can speak to that. Like, why is art important? Because it's been important historically.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways that it shows, our humanity. So I think that's the key to it all, is art is really important, and why have we lost that understanding?
But how do you interest the amateur artists who most of their focus is on skills? They look at YouTube to get more skills, and they rarely like when you came to do the artist gathering, that was that opened up a lot of people without them really knowing it. They had their art, and then you went through their art into a deeper level for them. Is that how you do it? I think I just answered my own question.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't think anybody really has. To me, it's a little bit like parenting. Nobody gives you a manual at the beginning. You try to figure it out along the way. And I think a lot of this is very much like that. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best ways to go about it, is to organically bring some of that information into the discussions, and people can then pick and choose what they want to take out of that. Because some artists are really not necessarily interested in anything more than the practical side of it, the set of skills that you bring to it. If it's something like woodworking, or if it's painting, and they want to focus on the formal side of it and the technique, that's fine. And maybe they just want to sell their artwork after the fact. But there are others who maybe want to look at this and say, well, why am I doing this? And where will it go from here? And they're thinking on more of a theoretical level about their artwork. And that's a little bit more challenging. And that's why the crit theory sessions that we experimented with a while back, maybe we're going to bring them back at some point. For the moment, I think actually the podcasts that we're doing right now, this set of podcasts, are a vehicle for having those conversations, and then that's put out there for people to make what they will of it. We have an upcoming podcast which is going to be on AI, and I'll be speaking with a specialist teaches at NASCAD on AI. It's such a complicated issue with so many different facets that I find it a little daunting, because where do you start with that? But it's impacting everybody, and not just in the arts. And it's not just a practical thing, it's a theoretical thing as well. So I think those conversations are really important to have. But like you said, Archie, it's where do you begin? And I think you were correct in answering your own question, that it perhaps happens organically.
Are there other events that you could have that do the same thing, like, it's along the same idea, but is there a different kind of event?
Well, I think the crit theory sessions were sort of based in that. The foundation of it was a little bit like an artist gathering, but what I did was I would select a particular reading, usually, ideally, a shorter essay. And if people wanted to read it beforehand, I'd let them know beforehand what it's going to be. And we did have some people who would read through it and then kind of digest the material, and then we would talk about it. I think one, for instance, was Michel Foucault's essay. It's a very short essay on Diego Velázquez's Las Meninas, which is, if you know that painting, is a remarkable work. It's very complicated, and it's a 17th century work that is really a demonstration of the artist's technical facility, but also his intellectual capacity. Because Velázquez was part of a generation of artists who wanted to prove the visual arts were equal in status, were equal to physics and the sciences and mathematics and so forth. A lot at stake there in that painting, because he's proving himself. The ideas are actually very accessible. So I find it's a great one to talk about, because people see it's not just a group portrait, but it's got all these layers of meaning and commentary by the artist on who he is and his status. But Foucault's essay is a difficult essay to deal with for people who are not used to that type of critical theory. So it was an experiment to see if we could have a conversation and understand what he's trying to say about it. And it generally worked out quite well. But it really does require people to come in with very open minds and to sit down and say, okay, I'm willing to wrestle with this thing, because it's not necessarily going to be so easy to grasp. And we found it worked. In that kind of format.
It worked with who? Like what
with the
population?
With the group of people who came in, all of whom were local artists who came in. This was we had these sessions in Sydney for a short while. I would say, well, we had probably some people who showed up who had gone through formal training, graduates of NASCAD, but we also had some people who had no formal training whatsoever. But it was really about breaking the ice, so that people who might be put off by even approaching that, but kind of wanted to know a little bit more about it, that we could create a platform and an environment where they could come in and feel comfortable.
Because that seems like one of the topics that we were interested in having for our school, not just a way of getting people to a certain skill level, but that the whole context of what it means to be an artist.
Yeah.
And that seems like one of the program classes or whatever.
Well, maybe we should talk about doing something like that. I do know that, a lot of this comes from my past as an art history instructor and professor. And certain lectures that I knew worked really, really well for students who were rooted in art history, but also students who were not. And so there are certain paintings, for instance, from history that are ideally suited for talking about these things. They provide great access points for very complex ideas, and they're good icebreakers. Las Meninas is a good example. There's a portrait by Vermeer, for instance, of the artist in his studio. Again, it's layered with complex ideas that are as much a commentary on the thinking of his times as they are on his technique. Just about any self-portrait by Rembrandt is another one. There are lots of examples to use for this, and I think if you're looking at how do we provide instruction or opportunities for education to learn more about content in art and how that can be developed, these are great vehicles for having those conversations.
How did you pitch that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I just put them out. If we're talking about the crit theory sessions, it was just we posted on Facebook and set up like the artist gatherings. We're going to have a gathering on this night and it's going to be a crit theory session, and I kind of promoted it as that.
When we started the Strait magazine, we went to see at the Cape Breton Center for Craft Design.
Lori?
Lori Burke.
Oh, Lori Burke, yes.
And I think she's the one that said the best way to do it is just go talk to people.
Mhm.
You have to go talk to them. Someone has to go out and talk to people, has to show them, has to ask them questions, has to have meetings. And
Yeah.
There are people out there like yourselves who are doing things, and they could be going on right now and we don't even know about it.
I know.
And how do we find a way to make these things more visible, to build those lines of communication?
And we're certainly available and willing and happy to go to any place in Cape Breton.
Yeah.
Building appreciation for the art, to introduce people to art in the general community, I think is a critical. You got to build a market.
Yeah.
It's really what kind of what you're doing. Like, it's laudable to have a society that understands art, but it's also important to have a market for the art.
Interestingly enough, I was asked to write an article recently on some of the challenges and the benefits of creating art in Cape Breton, which to be honest with you, I found to be a rather daunting task. How do I do this in 2,000 words or less? Where do I begin? But one thing that I sort of started to think about as I was writing this, because so much of what people consider in the arts to be critical is the marketable artwork, I guess, for want of a better expression. So when I have conversations with people here, very often the concept of what art is something that's rooted in the object or the work that can be sold. And from an economic standpoint, obviously that makes a lot of sense. But there are people who create artwork that is non-marketable, is not intended to be sold, and it might be conceptual. And public galleries generally exist in order to provide platforms for that work to be seen. And to go back to the Carfax thing, for instance, I had an artist I worked with a number of years back whose career up to that point had been rooted in making work that was then to be sold. And when we started talking about public art exhibitions, this was like a whole new world that was suddenly opening before her eyes. She didn't realize that there's such a thing as artist fees. So if you present a show where you're not selling the artwork, but it's more conceptually based, or it's rooted in it's in a public art gallery, so it's not for sale, how does that work? And it was a revelation for her to know, oh, there's this thing called Carfax, and you're going to pay me to have my work in this show, even though I'm not selling anything. I've got to look at this a little bit more closely. And she has done. And now she actually is in an ideal position because she's able to still do the marketable work and to earn money from that, but to also do the public art exhibitions if she's dealing with something that's not really meant to be presented as a commodity, And so that's another thing that we need to have conversations about, because there are people out there who are making work and the intention is not to necessarily sell it, but what do they do? How do I go about this? Where do I begin?
How would that work in a community like Richmond County?
It's a good question.
Where we don't have a university.
Yep.
We barely have we have public places, but like Richmond County office is might be a place you could do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll give you an example of what's happening here in CBRM. The Creative Catalyst program, which started a couple of years ago, provides funding for artists to complete projects that they want to do. But those projects are not necessarily, well, the funding actually does not go towards things that are marketable. So, if you were a musician, you can't create an album and cover the cost of the album so that you can then go on to sell it. It has to be for a non-marketable work. And that to me is actually really important because it does provide an avenue for people who want to create something that's much more conceptual, maybe ephemeral. It's only going to be placed in this location for a short period of time. Maybe it's an installation work.
Experimental.
Totally experimental. So it's providing a space and support for artists who want to do that. And I think particularly because we were talking about younger people before, but this is really all ages. But for somebody, let's say, who's young and is maybe thinking about going to art school, they're going to have to go off island because there's no visual arts degree that's offered here at CBU. NSCC has a very limited program now in terms of, and it's, again, as a community college, it's more practical skills as opposed to theoretical. So for a young person or even an older artist who maybe wants to develop this side of their practice, where do you go? How do you do this? And I think the CBRM Creative Catalyst program is helping to do that. So maybe that's one avenue. But it's a challenge that has to be considered. One thing I will say is that Cape Breton, for site-specific, unusual or experimental installations, Cape Breton is one of the best places I can think of for that kind of thing. Sure, because, well, just the landscape alone, the diversity of the landscape here, the history of this place. I mean, if you were developing an installation project that has something to do with the history of a particular locale, and you want to do that in nature and present that for a short period of time, this place is ideally suited for that. But again, how do you go about doing that? And if it's something that requires funding, where do you go to get the funding? But just to have the conversations around that, this is another aspect of art that as an artist, you might want to look at or develop. Maybe you hadn't tried this before. Maybe it's something you want to try. Those are the kind of conversations I think we need to have more of.
So we shall.
And on that note, I just want to thank both of you for joining me today and sharing your thoughts. And I wish you all the best in the continuing growth of the RAA and the Strait magazine. And again, I commend you both for doing a wonderful job to help build those bridges.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Honored to be here.
Getting the word out.
You're quite welcome. You've been listening to The Strait and Narrow, the official podcast of the Cape Breton University Art Gallery. My guests today were Archie Nadon and Elaine Mandrona. Our sound technician today was Derek Gallant. I'm your host, Greg Davies, curator of the Cape Breton University Art Gallery. Thanks for joining us today, and please stay tuned for further episodes featuring more guests from Unama'ki, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and Atlantic Canada.